Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, I was joined by Philadelphia Eagles fan Steve Mcguiness as we preview their upcoming 2025 campaign. Steve talks about the player departures and arrivals.
It's never good to lose experienced players, but I'll get onto it in a minute when we talk about players in. You do need to refresh a team even when you won a Super Bowl.
Steve also talks about the change in coordinators.
I think this is a very, very natural thing in the league these days. Success results in you losing your top staff.
And Steve predicts his team's overall record in our win-loss-tie segment. Hope you all enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pond NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, and we're here for our next team's season preview. And this team is the reigning champions in the Philadelphia Eagles. And of course, who else to bring on than friend of the show, Steve Mcguiness. Steve, how are you?
I'm absolutely great, Andy. How's you? How are the holidays?
Yeah, good. So the day of recording here is the 21st of July. Most likely be released around about the 28th, 29th of July. So, yeah, obviously, at this time of recording, I'm a day removed from being back from Scotland, which, of course, is your motherland, Steve. I had a good time in Edinburgh. Took the other half to Edinburgh for a birthday. Took on the Harry Potter train as a 30th birthday present. Watched a musical as well. It was a nice few days. And the weather was actually good. I've only ever been before for the rugby or just for a holiday in general. They've all been in July, that's all been in February or March. Actually, I did go to a funeral in Scotland in the summer, but I don't think that was Edinburgh. But either way, that wasn't as warm as it was this weekend. I mean, Friday especially was really warm. But then Saturday and Sunday, we had rain. So
you can't have a trip to Scotland without rain.
No, it's part of the... it's like a rite of passage to go to Scotland, I think, having some rainfall.
Yeah, it's that weird combination of like if you get a really sunny day, everyone's wondering about like they don't understand what that giant ball of fire in the sky is, and then when it rains, they all just feel like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah, it's almost like you'd rather it rain than be sunny.
Yeah, well, we are not. The Scots are not really designed for the sun. Let's be honest. We're designed for that nice grey sky with a little bit of rain, occasional snow. So this whole global warming thing is messing up our timelines.
Well, of course, you are the lucky guest out of 30 that gets to preview their team having just won a Super Bowl. I say having just won. It's been about 4 months since you won it. At what point for you, because I've never experienced a playoff win, let alone a Super Bowl win, so I don't know what this experience is like. What's it like? At what point do you go from still being in party mode, celebrating the win, to then looking forward to the next season? At what point does that light switch flick and you go, oh, right, time to think about next season? At what point does that come?
So the odd thing with this is you would think it would happen around about the time of the draft. But in terms of kind of a post-Super Bowl celebration, I don't know if this is different from our teams, players and fans of other teams, but when you've won it twice and you've been to the Super Bowl like 3 times in the last 6 years, it's kind of... I'm not going to say it loses its sheen. It just... The high lasts a little less time because you have, I mean, the week after winning it, right, you could literally run through a brick wall. You wouldn't feel anything. The adrenaline is still going. Everyone you talk to about the sport is just overwhelmed by it. You're sitting booking your tickets to go and watch the London games. You're keeping an eye on everything in free agency. You're saying goodbye to good players. And you're looking forward to the draft. And then around about the draft, that's when the Super Bowl high has worn off, and now you're back to the whole like, right, now I'm prepared for next season. What's going on? Where are we going? Who are we drafting? And I think because we'd had such an incredible draft the year before, I mean, we talked about it when we did this last year. We did so well in the draft. We got some absolute monsters who all made an instant impact. So this year, I think it wore off around about the draft. And since then, I've been kind of looking and seeing we're not really doing much in terms of free agency. But again, I expected that because we have a lot of very talented rookies. So I think a lot of the moves this season have just been cap room. Move some veterans out, bring some rookies in, bring some youngsters in. We'll talk about it when we talk about the players in and out, but yeah, Howie has been on the ball and he has been busy this summer.
I imagine as well, because we're recording this a day, maybe 2 days after they had the ring ceremony. I mean, that must also almost bring back the party a little bit to fans and players, because it's all almost reminds you a little bit, that if you hadn't already forgotten that you are the champions, and it's it must bring back a little bit of the celebrations again.
I think that the rings themselves give you that little bit of a higher. You've seen this year's. We have Super Bowl rings which have pop out eagle wings. I mean, if that's not the coolest Super Bowl ring you'll ever see, I don't know what is. The inscriptions are fantastic. It's great to see the players, especially the ones who kind of. We had a lot of guys who came in this season on prove it deals, and it's great to see those guys with their rings, with their their big contracts outside of it, and just that happy team togetherness. Even though they've moved on, the vibe once within the team still feels really great. And as a fan, that's a really positive thing to look forward to the season with.
Absolutely, and then I can only dream of that happening one day. You've generally seen as many playoff wins this season for your team as I've seen us have playoff appearances in my 14 years being a fan.
But thing is, though, I grew up with the opposite. So I grew up with an Eagles team that it did make the playoffs, but it struggled a little. We never really went deep into the playoffs. Whereas I was watching a Marino-led Dolphins who season after season were in the playoffs, dominating that division. This is back when the Patriots were just they were doing nothing franchise. And I still wish I had seen a Dan Marino Super Bowl win, but it wasn't to be. It's a cursed franchise.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that, if I'm honest. I'm not that hopeful for the season either. Let's head into the ins. So you've had many ins, and the main ins include the likes of AJ Dillon, the running back, as well as Adoree Jackson, Avery Williams. One of my biggest ever draft crushes in Aziz Ojulari, as well as Terrace Marshall, Matt Pryor, one of our old players, Kendall Lamb, and also you took in total. Also you traded for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Kenyon Green, as well as in the draft, taking 10 players, and the first 3 taken were Geard Campbell, linebacker, 31st overall out of Alabama, safety Andrew Makuba, safety out of Texas, 64th overall, and defensive tackle Ty Robinson, 111th overall. And then the outs include the likes of James Bradbury, the cornerback Slay out of Pittsburgh Steelers, as well as Tyrion Davis-Price to the Titans, and also Brandon Graham to retirement. Steve, overall, your thoughts on your team's off-season?
I guess I'll start partly with the players we lost. Big play Slay left. Now, I love Darius Slay. I absolutely love him. I'm really pleased that he's signed on, stayed another year. He was a real kind of leader. He's a real team captain. His presence there helped the rookies and helped the guys in the second year to really develop this year. I don't think players like Cooper DeJean are the level they're at without Darius Slay around them. So it's a good move for our part to free up salary, because obviously it was a decent amount of money. I do love him, but I do hate the fact he went to Pittsburgh. At least he could have left the state. But he's in the EFC, so we don't have to worry about him too much. Great guy. I'm glad he got a ring, and I'm glad he still was able to go elsewhere and get paid. But there's 2 players we lost that I really want to talk about that I'm really disappointed. Not disappointed in the franchise. 2 guys that if anyone knows the story of Mekhi Becton and what he went through at the Jets before he came to us on like a 1-year prove-it deal, the man has put himself through the ringer for 4 or 5 seasons. He's had bad coaching, he's had poor physio, he's had weight issues, and that when they cut him instead of picking up his 5th-year option, and we picked him up on a 1-year deal, I was like, this is a player we can do something with, but we need to find where to play him. And what he did for us, I have never seen a guard that can pancake offensive linemen the way that Becton did. Barkley's numbers last season are nowhere near what they are. Hurts' numbers are nowhere near what they are without Mekhi Becton opening up those running lanes. And I watched a few videos on him on the off season. Aside from anything else, he's just a big, humble guy. So I'm disappointed we couldn't keep him, because obviously he's signed a huge deal at the Chargers. But at the same time, I wish him nothing but the best. I'm so glad he got a ring. I'm so glad a guy that's had to fight the way he's had to fight for his career, reached the peak and got paid. I mean, that's the best thing. And then another guy who kind of has come through, and we drafted him 6 years ago, Josh Sweat. This is a guy, I mean, he's been here 6 years. We drafted him in 2018, and he was just patient. He was a team guy, did what was asked of him, had to sit behind veterans like Derek Barnett, Chris Long, Vinny Curry, fought through injuries, never complained. Always a team guy. And when he finally did get that chance, he just delivered every season. I wish we could have given him a longer deal than the 3-year deal when we re-signed him, and obviously that's why we've lost him to free agency. But if you look at his injury record during his rookie contract, it's understandable. And the kind of money he was being offered by the Cardinals, we can't compete with that. Not if we want to stay within our Super Bowl window. We need to strengthen across the board. We can't throw out ridiculously big contracts to one or two guys. So yeah, I'm really pleased after everything he went through for us, that he's again got his ring, got paid. But man, I'm going to miss having him. Really am. The guys we lost, the likes of Kenneth Gainwell, Avonte Maddox, Rogers. It's never good to lose experienced players, but I'll get onto it in a minute when we talk about players in. You do need to refresh a team, even when you won a Super Bowl. You need to look at your players and say, okay, the veterans that are here, some have kind of, that is as good as they're going to get. We need to just let them move on. All of them found new teams pretty quickly. You mentioned Bradbury. I like Bradbury, but he kind of, I don't know, he still for me has the stench of the Giants on him. So when we released him, I was like, I can live with that one. Talented player, but there's a little bit of, there's too much New York in him. One thing.
I'm an idiot. I was doing the planning for the episode, and I had all the ins and outs, and I don't know how I missed Josh Sweat and Becton, because I literally talked to people about how I thought Josh Sweat was one of the best free agency additions. Literally, I think he's one of the best ones made in the offseason for any team in the Cardinals. And Mekhi Becton went for big money. Apologies to the audience, I didn't mention that at the start of the episode, because that is a big L for me.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing though. We're talking about, I'm going for players out there. Our biggest thing, and it's not the players we brought in, and it's not the draft, it's the players we retained. Now, yes, we're losing Brandon Graham. We gave him a contract and then he retired, so he could take a short contract so he could retire an Eagle. The biggest loss we have is Brandon Graham. Big play Slay, Brandon Graham, Kelsey the year before. We're losing team captains. We're losing the guys who are the heart and soul of the team, the heart and soul of the franchise, the heart and soul of the city. They're the kind of guys that bleed green. But we did manage to extend Lane Johnson. And he's now the guy who kind of a lot of people are going to look to for leadership. I think it's only a 1-year extension. I'm pretty sure at the end of it he'll retire. I think that kind of group of players that we had, I actually thought they'd all retire together, but we've managed to kind of nudge them a little to keep a couple around. The re-signing of Zach Bond, though, now, can you imagine what Zach Bond, I know he's 28, can you imagine the kind of money Zach Bond would have got in free agency? His numbers last season were they were the best of his career. They were up there in the top 5 in the league. He was terrifying. A 3-year deal was a reasonable contract, the 28. The amount of money that he took, he could have made a lot more in free agency. He took a decent contract to stay with the Eagles, which I really appreciate. And with the guys, like the guys that we've drafted and the young guys around him, it's good to have a really solid, experienced, top level guy there for them to learn from. And also we extended Cam Jurgens. Now, I mentioned Kelsey and how much we missed him. Now, I wasn't totally sold on Cam Jurgens at the start of the season. There were a few. It took him a while to settle into that center role. And the problem for me was it almost felt like he was trying so hard to replace a legend, and he was trying too hard. And once he relaxed a little bit more and played his own game, and and Sirianni would have had a big effect in this, saying, "Look, don't try and be the next Jason Kels, be the first Cam Jurgens." And I think that settled him. By the time we got to the second half of the season, he was superb. And again, when you sign your centre to a 4-year deal, that's solidity down the centre of the field. That's what you want. You want your quarterback to have confidence in the guy snapping the ball, to make sure that nothing's getting through to him. That was the biggest, I think. Those are the biggest acquisitions for us. Of the players in, did you notice that of the guys we signed, there are 12 players who are all on 1-year prove-it deals?
Wow.
The ones you mentioned earlier. I like the addition of AJ Dillon. I think him and Barkley, that's just quadzilla times 2 at running back. And given our short yardage plays and the tush push, I think those are both great. I think it's a great addition. Of the rest, I think Adoree Jackson and Aziz, I can never pronounce his name, Aziz Ojolani are the two I'd probably be the most excited about in terms of them making an impact and getting that bigger contract afterwards, whether it's here or elsewhere. The rest of the guys, I feel as though we're signing veterans just to fill things out. I feel we're a really young team now, but we're still in a Super Bowl window. In fact, with the volume of rookies we had last year, I think we could be in this window for 2 to 3 years. And I think by not going overboard in the off-season this year in terms of bringing in big-name players and spending a lot of money, I think we can stay there for a while. I think there's a general understanding that Sirianni has a very solid understanding of the team mentality, and that obviously Howie will always bring in good players to fit the system. And players just want to come to Philly. But Philly, I remember a few years back when the Patriots had their dynasty, and Brady would take reduced contract to bring in guys around him. But the guys around him would also take reduced contracts just to play with Brady because they wanted to play on a winning side. And I think Sirianni and Howie have got that mentality with Philly. I think players want to come here. It's a winning franchise. It's a winning mentality. And going forward, it's nothing but positivity. Then we have the draft. We had 8 players in the draft we drafted. Who did we have there?
So you had in total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 players. 10 players.
Okay.
Quite a lot.
How many players did we take that were offensive players?
Got a quarterback, Carl McCall, Cameron Williams,
yep,
Miles Gibson, and that's it.
We took Drew Kendall at center and we took Kel McCord at quarterback. We again just strengthened an already overwhelming defense, and I think it's a reflection of how solid we are offensively. That it's a defense that's been weakened by the departures, and bringing in younger, hungrier talent to they'll sit. Most of those guys will not be straight into the team. I can understand why it was that Jahad Campbell dropped in the draft. I mean, he went 31st. We went up from 32nd to 31st to get him. I understand. I mean, he had shoulder surgery in college. There's a rumor going around that he might need surgery in the torn labrum for the other shoulder. But we are a franchise that gambles on that kind of player, and we've seen great rewards for it. I know in previous drafts we've had guys who they have issues with their temperament. They might not knuckle down when it's needed, and we've been like, no, we can bring in players like that. We can mold them, and we saw last year 3 or 4 of those players who supposedly were attitude problems. We saw them just knuckle down and go, this team wins if I do what I'm told, and we have developed great professionals in that respect. What I'm more interested in seeing with the rookies is what we give them as nicknames. So we signed Mac McWilliams, yeah? In college. Well, this is the thing. In college, it was like no one came up with a nickname for him, so he just got called Mac. The NFL is not going to stand for that. He's going to be Mac. It's a certainty.
To be fair, if his name's Mac, and I can only assume that he is, as a quarterback, maybe not as much, but as an athlete, quite a big guy, you can call him Big Mac.
Yeah, oh, fair enough.
And there's a sponsorship right there. If he has a good enough career, McDonald's is calling for him. It's written in the stars.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest signing of the whole off season, though, you haven't mentioned.
I mean, you've kept likes of Vic Fangio as DC. Biggest signing of the season I haven't mentioned. Is it a player coming in or player coming out?
It's someone staying in the franchise. We extended Sirianni.
Of course. I not even thought about that. Yeah.
I mean, everything flows through the GM and the head coach. And we extended a head coach that's taken us to 2 Super Bowls in the space of 3 years, and won one of them. A head coach who's been, part of the development of some of the best players we've ever seen in this franchise, and who are only getting better under his leadership. A guy who he took a lot of flack in the press. He did have some issues with some of his players, but he resolved them. He didn't go, right, I hate you, you're traded. You're fighting with me, you're traded. He sat down and talked to them man to man. He thrashed out his issues. We all talked about at the start of the season last year his issues with Jalen Hurts. Now, I said before I thought it was because Hurts was playing a little bit of hero ball after the big contract, and Sirianni kind of has obviously sat him down and went, look, you don't have the weight of the franchise on your shoulders. You are our quarterback, but there are 52 guys in this squad, right? And you need to kind of you need to be more comfortable with who you are. We will build the plays for you, right? We will put Saquon in there now, which takes a lot of pressure off you doing a lot of the running plays. And it meant that when we did see designed plays for Hurts, they were far more impactful. And I think Hurts understands that. I think Hurts understands that Sirianni he's not about ego, he's about team, right? And once he taught Hurts that if he plays based on team and not ego, he's far more successful. The guys who I play a lot of fantasy football with are all like, oh, Hurts isn't a top 5 fantasy football quarterback, yada, yada, yada. He doesn't need to be, right? This is a solid across-the-board team. It's got a great run game. We've got two top 5 wide receivers. We're a great unit. And to be honest, that's down to Sirianni.
I mean, yeah, you can't argue with the numbers. I mean, yeah, 2 out of 3 years in the Super Bowl. The season in between that way had a really good start. It did fall apart due to injuries. So you can't really argue with it. I mean, you can debate all you want about, his personality and maybe sort of that element, but on the field and what he's done as a coach in just a few years, it's a really good job. And he's a player, albeit it's the time at the Eagles ended badly for him, but he was replacing a guy who won their first Super Bowl. So it's not as if he's replacing, a complete idiot. It's a guy who's had a bad time towards the end, but he did win you a Super Bowl. So, it is a tough act to follow. But at the same time, I think, Doug Peterson benching Hurts paves the way nicely for, Sirianni to come in and build that relationship with him and do what they've done together. And Hurts could easily be sitting here with 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs if the game against the Chiefs in Arizona went a certain way. Now, you talked about players wanting to come to Philadelphia and amount of ins that have come in. The draft has been well. But a lot of coordinators don't want to be in Philadelphia. As we've seen in the last few years, I mean, you lost the Super Bowl in Arizona. What happened? Jonathan Gannon went to the Cardinals and Shane Steichen went to the Colts. And then the most recent Super Bowl, once again, you play a Super Bowl in a stadium where your coordinator goes to that stadium to coach. Kellen Moore has left as the OC to go to the New Orleans Saints, which was our last episode. And he's come in now, and obviously you've kept Vic Fangio. So you've kept the DC, unlike the last time you were in a Super Bowl. But I'm looking at obviously the new offensive coordinator, which is Kevin Patullo. If I've said that wrong, I do apologize. What's your thoughts on that? Because it's a lot to deal with for a quarterback to have one coordinator change and different playbook, etc., etc. But to have once again in multiple years another coordinator leave, it must be hard for a quarterback. What do you feel about that and the changing coordinator for the Eagles this season?
I think this is a very, very natural thing in the league these days. Success results in you losing your top staff. I'm going to be really fascinated this season. We've lost Kellen Moore, right? And I good luck to him. But I have a feeling he's going to be about as successful in New Orleans as Shane Steichen was in Indianapolis. Great offensive coordinators don't always become great head coaches. In fact, the league is littered with players who were fantastic offensive and defensive coaches who went to be head coaches and just didn't cut the mustard. We literally have one at defensive coordinator. Chris, if you're listening, I apologize for mentioning Vic Fangio's stint at the Broncos because you really hated that guy. But yeah, I mean, it's the nature of the league. The head coach position is about people management. It's not necessarily about your game planning. Okay, and that's the thing that people don't kind of recognize when people go from being an offensive or defensive coach to being a head coach. It's guys who they have the people skills to motivate, to unify a team. Those are the ones that succeed. You would never have told me when we appointed Sirianni, oh wait, where's this guy come from? What's his track record? No, he came in at 36 years old from college, from a couple of more minor positions in the league. He wasn't the big name you would expect from a team that was in the Super Bowl window. And yet there he is because his people management skills are incredible. So I think we will be fine. I think the reason that we've hired Patullo is that his playbook and his style is very similar to what we already run. It won't require an awful lot of fine-tuning. The players won't require an awful lot of changes. But at the same time, I actually think it's a good thing. You do need to freshen up your playbook every season. Otherwise, the teams around you, the teams in your division in particular, they work you out really quickly. So, yeah, I'm quite positive about the season in that respect. I don't think Hurts, as you say, having had so many different offensive coordinators, I don't think he's fazed by it anymore. I think players who have been around for the club for 3-4 seasons, I don't think they're going to be fazed by it. I think it's very natural in the league now that big teams, when they're successful, lose their offensive and defensive coordinators.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And I think there's a few other teams in the NFC that are suffering with, a loss of coordinators. And, that's often a sign of a good team is you're losing coordinators. If you're a bad team, no one wants your OC, no one wants your DC. But if you're a good team, that is the price that comes with being good. And that almost feeds into the whole Super Bowl window because it just takes one loss of coordinator, it takes one little change, and it can affect everything. So I think we've seen with the Niners, they've they lost Robert Saleh, then they had a new guy in D'Amico Ryans who did well as well, and then they brought in, I think it was Brandon Staley last season, and had a terrible time, albeit injuries were a massive part of it. And now they brought back Robert Saleh. So I think it's amazing how just one little personnel change can change so much in a team's fortunes. And speaking of which, I want to talk to you about my other talking point, which is about Saquon Barkley. Of course, had an amazing year. For me, should have been MVP. Had the 9th player in history to have 2,000 running yards. Of course, we're not expecting that to happen again. That might be a real one-off occasion because it's so hard to get 2,000 yards. But one thing we do know is that he's on the front cover of Madden. And there's been a long history in recent years of what we call the Madden curse. And we've seen most recently McCaffrey, who is basically the same player as Barkley. They're the bell cow for a team who's not doing well. They join a good team. I know they're in a bad team where they're the bell cow. They get a lot of losses, but a lot of injury problems occur as a result of that because they're being used so much, because they're the only star in the offense. And then they go to a team that's good, like McCaffrey going from the Panthers to the Niners and Barkley going from the Giants to the Eagles, where they're one of many good stars. They can almost not be used quite as much, but they can be used way more effectively. And we saw the results with McCaffrey making the Super Bowl. Could have easily been MVP that year, and Barkley last season doing the same thing. But then, McCaffrey goes on Madden, has tons of injury problems, plays just 4 games last season, and Barkley has had injury problems in the past, and they sometimes come back if you've had a history of them. And also, the Super Bowl hangover is also a massive concern for many teams because whilst we've seen the Chiefs go back to 3 in a row Super Bowl appearances, Patriots went back-to-back or 3 appearances in the mid-2010s. Eagles 2 and 3 years. What's your views on that whole thing about the Super Bowl curse and the Madden curse, and also teams around getting stronger? What's your take on all of that stuff that's been happening, particularly the fact that Barkley is on Madden, and also the fact that you are going in as the champions, and there is often a potential curse for those teams who win Super Bowls in the past?
So I'd agree with that. I mean, that is one of my big worries, is because Saquon last year was full of humility. He was a great teammate last year. We've all seen the kind of sideline coachings where he's sitting talking to Sirianni, and he's like, no, I could get this, but I want to let the younger guys in. I want to let them get time. I want to get them, in the team, winning games, yada, yada, yada. He did quarterback controversy over the offseason, but ultimately, that's ego. You've just won a Super Bowl. Sirianni did as well. Cooper DeJean did. We had a few players who they were, I'm not going to say they were the big I am, but they did make a lot of kind of media appearances, and some of them probably poorly chosen. But again, you can't really, it's the off season. You have to let players go out and kind of be themselves. And if they're being offered money, or they're being offered endorsements, or they're just things that they're really passionate about, you'll see them doing it. And of course, any opportunity for the media to slam the Eagles, because that's a really easy target. That sells papers. Can Barkley stay fit another year? Yes. He's exactly where he needs to be fitness-wise. The team manages him really well. And to be fair, he manages himself really well. He's really honest with his coaches when he's like, I'm good to go. I'm not good to go. I need to rest. I need to do this. And Sirianni has a great understanding with him. Sirianni can read Barkley to say, when he's ready to go. And I think we might wrap him a little bit more in cotton wool this year. I think AJ Dillon will do a lot more of the short yardage stuff. And we'll kind of have a lot more design runs for Barkley to get distance upfield. I certainly think a lot of kind of inside the 10. There won't be too many touchdowns for Barkley this year. It'll be a lot more open field. AJ Dillon will take over a lot of the short yardage stuff. But the Super Bowl curse. Now, yes, it's a thing. But it's a thing with, for me, older veteran teams. And I don't think we are that. I think we have a good veteran presence, but I think we have a lot of very young rookies in there, second year, third year guys. And I think we have a coach that keeps them level and keeps them humble. I think the team that will suffer the Super Bowl curse this year is actually the Chiefs. I can see Xavier Worthy's suspension is coming up, obviously, now that he's had his conviction for.
Rashee Rice, not Xavier
Rashee Rice, right? No, because Worthy's also been arrested. He's got a suspension coming later in the year. They're just waiting on him to go through the courts. Rice, he'll get 6 games for that DUI. Kelsey's in his last legs. Mahomes got exposed a little bit last year when he played against solid defenses. They scraped. You listen to anyone who played against them in the division, and in a lot of games, they scraped a lot of games last year. They didn't look like a Super Bowl winning team. And when they got up against a genuine quality team like us in the Super Bowl, that scoreline that flattered them. That was a 40-0 game. They were pummeled. So yeah, I'm not as worried about the Super Bowl curse this year. I think Barkley's numbers will be down from last year, but then again, it was the 9th best running performance of all time. You're not going to get that back to back. Freaks like Barry Sanders just aren't around in the league anymore. And as I say, Barkley's 28 this year. So, we will monitor him. We will manage him. He will see less of the ball this year, but he will see more big plays. So I still see him having 1,000, probably 1,500 yards this year, but a lot less touchdowns.
Okay, we'll head into the final section, which is going to be our win-loss tie section. For those who haven't heard the podcast before, each fan who comes on predicts their team's overall upcoming season record by going through each game and answering each game with a win-loss-tie answer. Now, Steve, you were on a year ago. The Eagles did go 14-3 a year ago, and of course, won the Super Bowl. Do you remember by chance what your prediction was 12 months ago for your team?
It was 12-5, I believe.
It was, yeah. You're the first person to actually correctly guess that. 12-5. You predicted them to go 12-5, which isn't that far off. Do you by chance remember as well how far you said they'd go in the postseason?
I'm always super, super positive about the team, so I was pretty certain we were going to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I listened back to the recording today. You had the divisional rounds this last season.
No way.
Yeah,
Everyone else I spoke to last year, I was like, you know what? I think we can win this. I think we can win this.
In our season predictions, you had the Eagles winning the whole thing. In our one we had with me, you, and Luke, just prior to the season beginning, you had the Eagles winning it. So something must have changed between point of recording. And I think when we recorded it, the preseason games have already started. We were talking about the first week, the fact that I'd watched Reece Abbott play for the Chiefs and the Dolphins game. And, so that would have been the start of August. It would have only been 3 or 4 weeks. So something must have changed for you.
Did we lose to the Dolphins preseason last year? I seem to recall watching a game in Miami. It was like there was almost nobody in the crowd.
That's the same thing in the regular season sometimes. But yeah, I mean, you did say as well, if the NFC North was bad, you could see you go to the NFC Championship. But of course, you did make it and win it. But the NFC North were good. But so you weren't far off. But yeah, I was surprised. I was expecting to listen to it and hear you say win the Super Bowl because you were confident. I think the year before that you said on the show that you'd win the Super Bowl on the season preview episode. So I was surprised. But
we are a strong franchise right now, really strong.
Yeah, it's a good time to be Eagles fan. I'm not gonna lie. But let's head on to week 1 of the season. You're at home, which is, of course, for every team who wins a Super Bowl, bar the 2019 season where it was a centenary game where we had the Packers-Bears. It's always the Super Bowl champions that host the first game, season opener. You've got it on Thursday Night Football against your division rivals, the Dallas Cowboys. Steve, win, loss, or tie?
We are going to stroll that. They're a terrible team with a terrible fan base, a terrible owner, and I cannot wait to watch them fail again this season.
You know what? I'm giving a little bit of a spoiler here. Not spoiler per se, but I think the Cowboys could be better than people think. I'm not saying they're going to win a division or they're going to win a playoff game, but I certainly think they're not going to be. I can see them being in that mix to make the playoffs. I can see them being in the sort of 9-8 in that sort of final week or two where the guy comes up on the Sunday Night Football coverage and he comes up with the percentages of who can make the playoffs. I can see him being in that conversation. I think if their new head coach is anything like their old, like his dad, I should say, I think you never know. It could surprise people.
What I said earlier about how offensive coaches don't necessarily always translate to good head coaches, I think that's what Schottenheimer is going to be. I think he's going to be someone who by week 8, week 9, Jerry's going to be looking at, have I made the right decision here? Do I need to start looking at another head coach?
I just think, if you've got obviously one of the best defensive line prospects this year in the draft, if you've got George Pickens, Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak on a good day could be a good quarterback, you got to win at least 8 games with that. You think
hasn't Micah Parsons spent the offseason like arguing with former Cowboys players about how good or how bad the team is? This is the thing about it. It's like the Eagles this summer, you haven't had anything negative at all. The Cowboys, it's been constant public bitching about everything.
Well, even today, I'm recording this on, I said before, on the 25th of July. I don't know where, literally, Jerry Jones in public said, Jerry Jones throws shots at Micah Parsons. Just because we sign him doesn't mean we'll have him. He was hurt 6 games last year. In bracket, he says Parsons only missed 4. So Jerry Jones is trying to slag off Micah Parsons, but actually is getting his facts wrong. But no,
the Micah Parsons versus DeMarcus Lawrence thing was brilliant. I love that.
Well, let's go on to week 2. You've gone from what you're viewing as an easy game to what could be your hardest game of the season in Arrowhead against the Kansas City Chiefs. Win, loss, or tie?
It's going to be a Super Bowl revenge game for the Chiefs, but I think, for one of a better phrase, I think we're in their head. I think it's going to be really difficult for them to get over just how badly they were dominated last time they played us. Andy Reid's going to have a lot of work to do there to motivate those players to say, look, you can beat this team. And I don't think the Chiefs have it in them. As I said, I think they'll suffer a Super Bowl hangover this year. I think we'll see a lot of players underperform, be suspended. I think Kelsey's in his last legs. I think we win that.
I hate the term revenge when it's a week 2 game because I don't think winning a week 2 game is really going to make up for what they had in that Super Bowl appearance. But I think certainly, they'll be having an eye on trying to play you guys again in February. And I don't think that's a far off shout to say they'll make the Super Bowl again. You think about Kelsey being on his final year, a last dance, or almost like a Scottie Pippen. Michael Jordan-esque final season. I just think that you make a Chiefs team angry rather than complacent. I think this team's going to potentially cause some problems again. I think they'll be right back in it. I think they'll be at least AFC Championship. I can't see them going out any earlier than that unless an horrible injury bug occurs to the team, like Mahomes goes down in week 2 or 4 or something like that. I just think that the Chiefs are always the Chiefs. They'll always be there, even when they have a bad season, they still make the Super Bowl. So I think they'll be good. But I think week 2, I think the Chiefs in week 2 compared to the Chiefs in week 15 is a whole 2 different teams. So I think the best time to play them is in week 2. Week 3, you've got a home game and you're hosting the Los Angeles Rams.
So this is a rematch of the championship game, or was it the divisional round?
Yeah.
Now that, for me, that was the hardest game for us to play in the playoffs. They were the team that kind of matched up best with us. It was the one game where I genuinely thought at one point we were going to lose. But I am so looking forward to going up against them because I want to see AJ Brown torching Jared Verse. You hate us, Jared Verse. We hate you too, dickhead. I am looking forward to watching him get destroyed.
So that's a good start, 3-0. And then your next game is a road game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So this is the game I'm looking forward to the most, probably from the first 8 games of the season, because it will be a shootout. I love that Bucs offense. It will test their secondary like no other team in the league. They've already got Evans and Godwin. McMillan had a great end to the season. They added Igbuka in the draft. The K. Daughton's sitting there at tight end. They just have a really, really good offense. Defensively, not so great. But again, this is going to be a case of, can our defense cope with probably, for me, one of the highest powered offenses in the league? No, we don't do so well in Florida. So I'm going to give that one to the Bucs.
Okay, so then week 5, you're at home, and your home game is against the Denver Broncos.
Now, this is odd. Nobody likes to say you're going to lose a game at home, but this is a Sean Payton team that has been developing year on year since he took over. And I think they are actually going to win their division this year. I think they're going to outdo the Chiefs. I think it's about a head coach. It's about a head coach and his impact on a team and what he does when developing young players, developing a team over a 2, 3, 4 season period. Payton is making that Broncos team look good. They are developing. They are solid. Defensively, I think they're great. Offensively, Bo Nix, I didn't rate when they drafted him, but he's proven me wrong. He's absolutely proven me wrong. Courtland Sutton is a massively underrated wide receiver. I think on his day, he's one of the top 10 in the league. It's going to be tough. I don't want to predict a home defeat, but I think we might lose that.
Okay. So week 7 is, week 6, I should say, is a road game against the New York Giants.
50 burger against the basement dwellers. Neighbours will need a torch to find his way out of Cooper DeJean's pockets. That's it. We will just smash them. They're a terrible team. For me, again, they are one of the bottom 3 teams in the league, and they will be picking the top 3 in the draft next year.
Interesting. So week 7, you're on the road again, but this time taking on the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, that'll be another shootout. This will depend very much on the connection between JJ and JJ. I think Addison will be suspended by then. I see he's been arrested and charged. I'm not sure if that's going through the courts yet. But they will. This is not going to be the Vikings team of last year. I think they're going to struggle this year. You're going to see a stronger Bears team. The Lions, don't know. But they will be banged up divisionally by the time they reach us in week 7. And I'm pretty certain we can go into Minnesota and beat them.
Well, before your week 9 bye, you've got a week 8 game, once again, against the New York Giants.
50 burger against the basement dwellers, worst team in football. Move on.
So after your bye week in week 10, you've got a road game at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers.
Screw that franchise. I hate that franchise with a passion. Tom Grossi, I think you're wonderful. Your team sucks. We are going to go there and we are going to maul them.
Oh, see, I got nothing against. I like Green Bay a lot. So
I hate them. You can stick it. We are keeping the tush push.
Week 11 is a home game. You're back at home, this time facing the Detroit Lions.
I don't know with this one. Whilst I said that we can afford to lose an offensive coordinator because we have a head coach who can adapt to everything. We have a team that can adapt to everything and has adapted. The Lions' strength over the last 3 seasons has been built on a consistent coaching team, and I think the loss of Ben Johnson hurts them genuinely. I don't know how that's going to transfer to him as a head coach in Chicago, but I do think that his loss hurts Jared Goff, and I think it hurts the offense overall. So, do I think we can beat them? Yes, I do.
Okay, so in week 13, this is I called in the Bears episode a hairdry treatment bowl as you take on the Chicago Bears.
Yeah. Right now, do I think offensively the Bears drafted really well? Yes. Do I think they have a lot of really great offensive talent? Yes. Do I still think they have a defense which is capable of winning that division? No. And do I think that their quarterback is the franchise guy? No. I think he will be their franchise guy, but to me, he's not a franchise quarterback. This is his prove it season because last season, yes, his numbers were great, but so were his picks, so was his decision making was poor. Yes, they're a terrible head coach, but I don't think he's their guy. He might prove me wrong. I don't know. But by the time we play them, we'll know. We will know if he is that guy. If they are 6 wins by the time they get to us, then I'm proven wrong and I hold my hands up. I don't think he is that guy, and I think we will beat them, and I don't think Luke will speak to me for a week.
Well, week 14 is a road game against the Los Angeles Chargers. Win, loss, or tie?
Have we missed the game here by any chance?
No, we've got week 13 Bears, week 14 Chargers.
23rd of November, we're at the Cowboys after that Lions game.
I missed that. Sorry, I completely missed that. Week 12 at the Cowboys.
Yeah. By that point, Jerry will be falling apart. The team will all be blind from sun glare through that giant glass window. It's a horrible franchise, horrible fans, horrible stadium, and we will go in there and crush them.
I thought you could give me a rendition of a song then. I thought you were going to sing The Cowboys Are Falling Apart. I thought I was going to hear that.
They're going to have a bad year this year. I don't care who knows it, who I tell it to. They feel like they're infighting all the time. Their owner does not help the situation. I don't see public shows of unity from that team. And again, it's a team game. It's not an individual game. If I'm talking about the Cowboys and all I hear is Micah Parsons making comments on Twitter, Jerry Jones making comments on Twitter, what's Dak Prescott doing? What's CeeDee Lamb doing? I'm not hearing anything from the kind of team leaders. I'm not seeing unity, not anything. So I think that franchise is going to struggle. In fact, honestly, I think that franchise will struggle until Jerry gives it up.
Yeah, I can agree with that last point. As I said before, week 14, you're on the road at SoFi Stadium to the Chargers. Win, loss, or tie?
I think that is probably one of our losses this season. I think with better protection, Herbert is, for me, one of the best pocket passes in the league. Their run game, it's a hardball team. You could literally stick, me in there, and I'd probably get 500 yards in the season. I like Chargers this year in that division. I think that's going to be one of the most competitive divisions in football. I think the Chargers, the Broncos, the Chiefs are all going to be fighting it out. And the Pete Carroll's Raiders will be improved, but maybe not thereabouts. But I like the Chargers. I like hardball teams. I know how difficult they are to play against. It's on the road, and I think we will probably be. Yeah, we've got. Yeah, I'm going to give that one to the Chargers.
Okay, speaking of the Raiders, you take them on in week 15 at home.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Ashton Jeanty in person, see how he performs. I think Carroll obviously is a great coach. They've solved, I think, their quarterback problem with Geno Smith. They'll be a team in transition. They'll be a team in development this year, but there's no reason why by the time you get to that week we couldn't see the Raiders with like 6-7 wins. The divisionally will be their biggest the toughest games, but it's us. It's at the Link, and it's an Eagles win.
Okay, so then week 16, your penultimate road game of the season, you're taking on the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, we've got a really, really huge strength of schedule this year because obviously we won the Super Bowl last year. The Commanders, for me, are the team we are competing with for the division. Daniels looked great last year. Scary Terry is negotiating, but for the most part, the team around him is really, really good. That Commanders team can put up 40 points on anyone in the league on their day. Just defensively, they need to build. They got rid of Dan Snyder, and ever since then, it's just been more and more positive. I noticed that someone's been making comments about renaming them as the Redskins this week. That person can shut up. This is football. It's nothing to do with him. Yeah, I think it's similar to the Bucs game in week 4. I think that's a massive shootout. I'll give them that. I'll give them that one.
Okay, so then week 17 is your final road game of the season, and you're taking on the Buffalo Bills in one of their final ever games at Highmark Stadium. Win, loss, or tie?
Maybe one of their final games. There's been talk this week about how the stadium may not be ready for the start of next season, and they may still have Highmark. Yeah, I saw a couple of stories on this. They're saying it's on schedule, and then there's others going, no, it's not ready yet, mate. It's a little bit off.
I've just posted a video of Bills fans talking about because today's the day when we're recording it, our first season preview has been released, and they should just be putting up videos of Bills fans talking about their feelings of leaving the stadium. So hopefully, it is the final season for that sake.
I do hope it all goes to plan. I mean, the new stadium does look great, and it'll be nice to have been watching Bills games where you don't see people sitting there, as popsicles, with their giant blankets over them. But it's the Bills.
There's no roof, though. They'll still be in the cold.
Yeah, I think it's a better designed stadium, though. I don't think they'll be quite as bad. But it's the Bills. The Bills against NFC East teams are traditionally terrible. We will win that.
Okay, and then finally, week 18 is once again against the Commanders, but this time at home.
Yeah, and that will be the reverse of the fixture when we played them in Washington. We will win that. We will take the division with that win. But I mean that final 3 games, going Commanders, Bills, Commanders. That's a tough end to the season, and it does make for what was hopefully we have by that point the 1 or 2 seed. But I think I'd love the 1 seed again, because I think after those 3 games we are going to need to get some rest before the playoffs.
Well, it will leave you with according to your predictions, with a 13-4 record, which will definitely get in the playoffs and most likely could see you have at least second seed, if not the first seed. So with that, how far do you think you'll go in the postseason, should you have that record?
We'll repeat.
Interesting. Love that.
We will repeat. I was looking at the team and I was like, where are weaknesses? Where have we lost something that we haven't replaced? And the only real kind of weaknesses I can see is us at tight end. I mean, I've not been impressed with Grant Calcaterra. We're actively shopping Dallas Goedert. We brought in Granson and Bryant, but they haven't really excelled anywhere. So all we have is depth. There's no kind of standout performers there. And obviously teams are going to key on Barkley and Hurts, and we're going to get a lot less opportunity, I think, for run game this year. So we need tight ends for short yard passing situations. Aside from that, I don't see us having any major weakness in the team. In fact, I think the rookies and second-year guys from last year will get stronger this year, because the guys going into the 3rd year, they're playing to get their 5th-year contract extension, or in some cases, to get their big deal. And I don't see any reason why we can't do it. I look around at the teams in the NFC, and I'm like, who do I fear? Not really anyone. And I look at the AFC, and I'm like, well, the Chiefs will still be there or thereabouts, but realistically, I think the Ravens can dominate that division this season. If the Bengals sort their O-line, that's going to be a super competitive AFC this year. And And I feel like there's nobody there that is on the level of us at the moment. But again, this will be down to Sirianni tempering expectation within the team. If the young guys start getting a bit of ego and going, we crushed these guys last year, we'll crush them this year, he needs to keep that in check. He needs to keep these guys saying, look, it's about your focus, it's about your preparation, it's about doing what the team needs. And if you can keep that going and keep that mentality, we will repeat.
Okay, well, before we go, we're going to go to our new section this off-season in the season previews, which is Fan Asks Fan. So our last guest was TalkSport Jay Lawrence, who came on the show, and he asked this question to our next guest, which is you, Steve. He wants to know, which player from your team do you think will come out of nowhere and have a great season?
AJ Dillon. There will be so much focus this year on Saquon Barkley. And if you recall, who was the Lions running back a few years ago, who was barely using open field, but ended up with like 14, 15 league Williams. Yeah. I think Dillon's going to have that kind of year. I think Dillon's going to have one of those where it's like he doesn't get more than 500-600 yards, but he's unstoppable in the last 5. And he makes teams will be like they're sitting there going, right, we're going to tush push, they're going to tush push. No, we're going to have to off to Quadzilla and let him just run through your offensive line, your defensive line. It's just, I feel like AJ Dillon has the opportunity to make a real impact this year. I think he was really criminally underused when he was in Green Bay. And I think, especially when we play Green Bay, I think he will see it as a personal, mission to prove that they were wrong to let him go.
Okay, and then now we will get you to ask our next guest a question now. For the audience, you don't know who it's going to be yet. That is yet to come, which team we're going to cover next. And neither do you, Steve. You haven't got any idea who the next team is. And your question could be about the Eagles, about the NFL. But what is your question to ask our next team season preview guest?
Which player within your franchise who is in a contract year is going to ball out this year?
Interesting. Love that. Well, that is a good way to end the episode for today. So once again, thank you, Steve, for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. This has been our 2025 Across the Pod NFL podcast, Philadelphia Eagles season preview. And I've been, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, with our guest today, Eagles fan Steve Mcguiness. And we'll see you guys for our next team's season preview. See you then.
Take care.